All right, a camping spree with Mr. Magee by Chris Van Dusen. A camping spree with Mr. Magee. A camping spree with Mr. Magee by Chris Van Dusen. And here looks like a little trailer type. Here looks like a animal print. Not sure if I want to stumble across that on my camping trip. Early one morning at 7:03, Mr. Magee and his little dog, Dee, packed up the camper and hitched up the load, hopped in the Rambler, and then hit the road. So I want you thinking, have you ever had to get up really, really early for some kind of trip somewhere? It's another topic that I mentioned during our quick write that you can write about. Hopped in the Rambler and then hit the road. They drove to the mountains. Have you ever been to the mountains? Far from the sea for 2 nights of camping, or possibly 3. Notice this camper, they hook up to their car to then take with them. There's nothing like camping, said Mr. Magee. I know you will love it. Just wait and see. The views are fantastic. There's hardly a sound. Aside from the wildlife, there's no one around. And the air is so sweet. You'll sleep like a dog, said Mr. Magee to his small spotted dog. A few hours later, they took a sharp right and found a great spot to lay camp for the night. It was high on a hill with a beautiful view of Mount Adams, Mount Lincoln, and Jefferson too. But perhaps the most wonderful feature of all was the brook that ran over a steep waterfall. Dee gathered pine cones and branches and logs. Magee made a campfire and cooked some hot dogs. And as the sun set behind far distant knolls, they sat roasting marshmallows over the coals. So have you ever roasted marshmallows? Do you like roasted marshmallows? Or maybe you turn them into s'mores with like the graham cracker and the chocolate? Have you ever had that? Do you enjoy that? Are there other foods that you would like to cook over a campfire? Maybe you'd like to roast some hot dogs. Maybe you have one of those containers that you make like little sandwiches out on a campfire. As the embers went out, they felt tired and dozy. So they climbed in their bunk beds, all comfy and cozy. Have you ever slept in a bunk bed? Would you like to sleep in a bunk bed? Does that sound like fun? Something else you can write about in your journal. But while they were falling asleep without care, along came a stumbling, bumbling bear. A kindly old bear whose sight wasn't so clear. He couldn't see far and he couldn't see near, but he could smell marshmallows sticky and sweet. This smell made him hungry. He wanted a treat. So if you ever do go camping, it's very important. Not necessarily bears, but even raccoons or skunks. If you leave the food out like they left their food out, be ready for some critters to come and help themselves out. He sniffed out the place where the marshmallows lay, but the car and the camper were in the bear's way. Yet they didn't stop, the sneaky old snitch. He simply tried squeezing right under the hitch. And as he was shimmery into the gap, he pushed up the hitch, which let it go with a snap. This looks like a bad situation here.
That car must have been expensive.
Right. Now that the camper and car were united, they started to roll down the rocky hillside. The car bounced away on the old logging road while the camper was headed to where the stream flowed. It flew down the hill with a wild, bumpy ride, with Dee and Magee sleeping soundly inside. Whew. They were snoring and snoozing until enjoying a dream when splash went the camper right into the stream. The splash shook the camper. They bumped out of bed. Now, what in the world was that? Magee said. And when he looked out and saw where they were, his hair stood on end, and so did Dee's fur. They were caught in the rapids, but that wasn't all. They were headed smack dab for the big waterfall. Dee and Magee both started to quiver. As faster and faster they headed down the river. But just when they thought they'd fall over the edge. So I ask you also to explore the idea, have you ever seen a waterfall? Have you ever gone to see one? Would you like to go see one? Their camper got stuck on a rock at the ledge. So there they were, stranded, Magee and his pup, on the top of a waterfall 50 feet up. That is scary right there. Meanwhile, that nearsighted bear from before was searching for one little marshmallow more when, lo and behold, as if out of a dream, he spied something sweet floating over the stream. But what the bear thought was a marshmallow treat was really the hitch and not something to eat. Okay, so at this point they're like, okay, do we want to be lunch for the bear or risk falling over the edge? The bear was determined to capture his prize, so he jumped in the water right up to his thighs. He splashed through the stream to the edge of the fall and snatched up the trailer, hitch, camper, and all. Dee felt a tug. Magee heard a knock. As the bear pulled the camper right off of the rock, he dragged them both all the way back to the bank. When he realized the hitch was not sweet, but quite rank, he spit out the hitch and left in dismay, while Magee and Dee's camper again rolled away. It flew down the path with a jolt in the jar and stopped in some bushes right next to the car. Dee popped her head out. Magee looked out too. Had they really stopped rolling? Could it be true? At last things were quiet and peaceful and still. They hooked up the hitch and drove off down the hill. And on the way home, Magee said to Dee, that trip wasn't quite like I thought it would be. So when they got home, with the sky turning red, they decided to camp in the backyard instead. And that is the end of our camping story. So for your quick rate today, let me stop the story. Again, it is in Epic if you